Commander Grek stood at the command bridge of the Dominion's Fist, his massive warship hovering above Earth's orbit. His scaled fingers drummed against the polished surface of his command console, while his secondary eyes scanned multiple holographic displays showing Earth's defensive positions. The primary diplomatic meeting with these humans would begin in less than an hour, and everything had to be perfect. "Status report," he barked, his voice echoing through the bridge. "All systems normal, Commander," replied Officer Merck from his station. "The human diplomatic vessel is approaching on schedule. Their weapons systems remain powered down as agreed." Grek nodded, his crystalline head crest catching the blue light from the nearby monitors. The humans had been surprisingly agreeable to their terms for first contact, perhaps too agreeable. In his experience, species that showed no fear either had a secret weapon or were foolishly naive. He intended to find out which was true of Earth. "Prepare the greeting hall," he ordered, "and make sure our security forces are in position, discreetly." The massive meeting chamber had been prepared according to the standard diplomatic protocols. The high ceiling featured retractable weapon systems hidden behind decorative panels. The walls contained enough scanning equipment to detect a single grain of explosive powder. Grek had survived 3 assassination attempts during previous diplomatic missions. He didn't intend to make it 4. When the human ship docked, Grek watched through the security feeds as their delegation emerged. They appeared mostly as described in their transmissions: bipedal, soft-skinned, and dressed in what they called formal attire. But something else emerged with them that made all 4 of Grek's hearts skip a beat. "What is that creature?" he demanded, zooming in on the feed. Beside one of the humans walked a 4-legged beast with golden fur, sharp teeth, and keen predatory eyes. It moved with athletic grace, and its size suggested it could easily bring down prey larger than the humans themselves. "Unknown, Commander," said his science officer. "It appears to be some form of Earth predator, but our databases are incomplete regarding their fauna." Grek's crest flared with alarm. They dare bring a war beast to a diplomatic meeting. He activated his combat armor, feeling the familiar embrace of its protective fields. "Alert security. Be ready for anything." The human delegation was led by a male who introduced himself as Ambassador Tom Miller. He appeared unarmed, but Grek couldn't take his eyes off the beast that sat calmly at Miller's side. "Welcome aboard the Dominion's Fist," Grek said formally, his translator converting his words to English. "Though I must question your decision to bring a combat creature to these proceedings." Miller looked confused for a moment, then smiled. "Oh, you mean Max. He's not a combat creature at all. He's my therapy dog." The translator struggled with the term therapy dog, producing a string of confused meanings. Grek's security team shifted nervously, their weapons charged but hidden. "You mean to tell me this is some form of medical device?" Grek asked, his crest rippling with skepticism. "Not exactly," Miller replied, reaching down to pat the creature's head. The beast's tail began to move back and forth in what Grek could only interpret as some form of threat display. "Max here is a companion animal, a friend. Many humans keep dogs as pets." The concept seemed to break Grek's translator entirely. The idea of keeping a predator as a friend went against everything he understood about civilization. In his culture, beasts were tools of war, carefully bred and controlled through force and technology. The situation grew tenser when Max, picking up on some invisible signal, stood up and walked a few steps toward Grek. The commander's security team immediately raised their weapons, causing the human delegation to step back in alarm. "Please," Miller said quickly, "Max is just being friendly. He wants to say hello." "Hello," Grek's translator managed weakly, to a superior officer of the Dominion fleet, with its teeth exposed. What the humans call a smile on the beast's face, Grek saw as a battle-ready snarl. The wagging tail must be some form of threat display, perhaps to hypnotize prey. He had seen similar tactics from the war beasts of the Crimson sectors. "This meeting cannot proceed," Grek declared, his armor fully activating now. Not until you explain why you've brought a war beast into my ship under the pretense of peace. As tensions rose in the greeting hall, neither species realized just how deeply their misunderstanding of each other went. For the humans, they had brought man's best friend to help ease diplomatic relations. For the aliens, they saw a carefully disguised weapon in the form of Earth's most successful predator, one that had somehow fooled its way into the humans' inner circle. The first contact was rapidly becoming a first conflict, all because of a friendly golden retriever named Max who just wanted to make new friends. The greeting hall of the Dominion's Fist had become a powder keg ready to explode. Commander Grek's security forces maintained their positions, weapons trained on Max, while Ambassador Miller tried desperately to defuse the situation. "Commander, please," Miller said, holding his hands up in a peaceful gesture. "Let me demonstrate that Max is completely harmless." Grek's crystalline crest flickered with different colors, a sign of intense emotional conflict that his species displayed when agitated. "You expect me to believe that this apex predator is harmless. Our scans show its bite force is sufficient to crush bones." Max, completely unaware of the tension he was causing, sat down and tilted his head, his tongue lolling out in a friendly pant. His tail continued to sweep across the polished floor of the greeting hall with steady, happy thumps. "Look," Miller said carefully, "I'm going to show you something. Please don't shoot." He reached into his pocket slowly, causing several of the alien guards to tense up. "What are you doing?" Grek demanded, his armor humming as its defensive systems powered up further. Miller pulled out a small rubber ball. Max's ears immediately perked up, and his tail began wagging faster. "This is what Max is really about," Miller explained, and then he gently tossed the ball across the greeting hall. Max bounded after it with joyful enthusiasm, his claws clicking against the floor. Several alien guards tracked him with their weapons, but the dog was focused entirely on the ball. He caught it, turned around, and trotted back to Miller, dropping the slobbery ball at his feet with a proud expression. "Good boy," Miller said, reaching down to scratch behind Max's ears. The dog leaned into the touch, closing his eyes in contentment. Grek watched this display with all four of his eyes widened in disbelief. I don't understand. Your war beast retrieves objects for you. Is this some form of combat training?" One of Grek's junior officers, who had been analyzing the situation, stepped forward. "Commander, our readings indicate the creature's hormone levels show no signs of aggression. In fact, they're consistent with pleasure." "Impossible," Grek declared. "Show me your battle beasts. Let us compare their might." He pressed a button on his armor, and a door slid open at the far end of the hall. Two large, cybernetically enhanced creatures stalked out, their metal implants gleaming under the lights. They were reptilian in appearance, with reinforced scales and glowing red eyes. The human delegation tensed, but Max just looked at the new arrivals with curious interest. He gave a friendly woof that echoed through the suddenly silent hall. The battle beasts stopped, confused by this response. They had been trained to react to fear or aggression, but Max displayed neither. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone in the room. He played bowed, his front end lowered and rear end up, tail still wagging. What kind of combat stance is that?" Grek asked, bewildered. Miller couldn't help but smile. "It's not a combat stance at all, Commander. It's an invitation to play. That's what Max does. He plays, he loves, and he makes friends." The battle beasts looked to their handlers for instructions, clearly unprepared for this situation. One of them took a tentative step forward, more out of curiosity than aggression. Max, seeing this as acceptance of his play invitation, gave another happy bark and pranced sideways playfully, still in his play bow position. "This is unprecedented," the science officer announced, frantically analyzing readings. "The war beast's aggression levels are actually decreasing. They're responding to the Earth creatures' friendliness." Grek watched in amazement as his fearsome battle beasts, bred for generations to be perfect killing machines, began to show signs of confusion. And then, remarkably, interest in Max's playful behavior. "Stop this at once," Greg commanded, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "This must be some kind of psychological warfare." "No warfare," Miller said calmly. "This is just who Max is, who dogs are. They're creatures who chose, thousands of years ago, to be our friends rather than our enemies. We didn't force them. We didn't need to use cybernetics or control devices. They chose us, and we chose them." As Max continued his playful display, even some of the alien guards began to lower their weapons slightly, captivated by this completely unexpected turn of events. The universe as they knew it didn't have room for a predator that chose peace over violence. Yet here one was, trying to make friends with everything in sight. The tension in the greeting hall was suddenly broken by the sound of small footsteps. A young alien child, barely reaching Greg's waist, had wandered into the diplomatic chamber. The child's scales were still soft and pearlescent, indicating their young age. "Tick, get back here," called out one of the crew members, but the child was fascinated by the scene before them. Commander Greg's crest flared in alarm. "Get the child out of here. There are 2 battle beasts and an Earth predator." Before he could finish his sentence, a maintenance drone malfunctioned overhead, sending a shower of sparks and debris toward the child. The alien battle beasts, trained only for combat, remained focused on Max. But Max's reaction was instantaneous. The golden retriever darted forward, moving faster than anyone expected. Several guards raised their weapons, but Max wasn't attacking. He positioned himself over the child, shielding them from the falling debris with his own body. Small pieces of metal bounced off his fur as he stood protectively over the young alien. The entire hall fell silent. Did the Earth beast just protect my daughter?" Greg asked, his voice barely a whisper. The commander's tough exterior cracked as he realized what could have happened if Max hadn't acted. The child, rather than being frightened, reached up to touch Max's soft fur. Max responded by gently licking their hand, causing the young alien to make a sound that humans would later learn was their version of laughter. "This is what dogs do," Miller explained softly. "They protect. They love. Not because they're ordered to, but because that's who they are." The science officer stepped forward, scanner in hand. "Commander, I'm detecting elevated levels of oxytocin, or our species equivalent, in both the child and the Earth creature. It's the same hormone our kind produces during family bonding." Greg slowly walked forward, his armor powering down for the first time since the meeting began. "But how? How did you turn such a capable hunter into this?" "We didn't turn them into anything," Miller explained. "We gave them love. And they gave it back. Thousands of years ago, some wolves decided that working with humans was better than working against us. Over generations, they became dogs. They chose to emphasize their social skills over their hunting skills." As if to demonstrate this point, Max gently guided the alien child back toward their parent, staying close to ensure they made it safely. The battle beasts watched this interaction with visible confusion, their programming unable to process this kind of behavior. "You mean to tell me," Greg said, his crest now showing colors of deep thought and curiosity, "that your species achieved this level of cooperation through kindness?" Miller nodded. "Force creates resistance. Kindness creates allies. That's why Max here can do things your battle beasts can't. He thinks for himself. He makes his own choices, and time again, he chooses to help." The alien child had now safely reached their parent, but kept looking back at Max with obvious fascination. Max sat patiently, his tail wagging whenever the child looked his way. "Our entire military philosophy," Greg muttered, looking at his battle beasts with new eyes. "We spent generations forcing obedience when we could have been earning loyalty." One of the battle beasts, perhaps influenced by Max's continued peaceful presence, slowly lay down on the floor. It was the first time anyone had seen one of these creatures relax without being commanded to do so. "It seems, Commander," Miller said with a gentle smile, "that your battle beasts might have the capacity for friendship too. They've just never been given the chance to show it." Greg's crest shifted to a color the humans hadn't seen before. Later, they would learn it was the color of hope. "Ambassador Miller," Greg said formally, "I believe we have much to learn from each other. And perhaps we could start with lessons about these dogs of yours." Just as the tension in the greeting hall began to ease, Max's ears suddenly perked up. His whole body stiffened, and a low growl rumbled in his throat, the first aggressive sound he'd made since arriving on the ship. "What's wrong with him?" Greg asked, his crest flickering with concern. Miller frowned. "Something's bothering him. Dogs have much better hearing and smell than humans. When Max acts like this, it usually means." The ship's emergency lights suddenly flashed red. A violent explosion rocked the far side of the greeting hall, and armored figures burst through the smoke, wearing masks that concealed their species. "Pirates!" Greg shouted, his battle armor powering up instantly. "How did they get past our sensors?" The attackers opened fire with plasma weapons. Greg's security team responded immediately, while the battle beasts charged forward on command. However, the pirates seemed prepared for this. They threw sonic devices that sent the cybernetically enhanced creatures into confusion, their programming unable to handle the disruption. "Get the ambassador to safety," Greg ordered, but the pirates had positioned themselves between the diplomatic team and the exits. Max, however, was already in motion. Unlike the battle beasts, he wasn't hindered by the sonic devices. His ears might have been sensitive to the noise, but his mind remained clear. He darted through the chaos, nose working frantically, and began barking at a specific wall panel. "What's he trying to tell us?" Greg asked, deflecting enemy fire with his armor shields. Miller's eyes widened with understanding. "He's found a way out. Dogs don't just detect danger, they help find solutions. Is there a passage behind that panel?" "A maintenance tunnel," Greg confirmed, surprised. "But how did he?" "His nose," Miller explained quickly. "He can smell the airflow. We need to get everyone out, especially your child crews." The battle beasts were still stumbling, their enhanced strength useless without clear direction. The pirates pressed their advantage, clearly familiar with how to counter the Dominion's standard tactics. "My battle beasts are useless," Greg growled in frustration. "The sonic weapons have scrambled their control circuits." Max barked again, more urgently this time. He ran back and forth between the humans and aliens and the wall panel, clearly trying to herd everyone toward safety. The alien child from earlier recognized his intent and tugged on their parent's arm, pointing at Max. "Trust him," Miller shouted over the chaos. "He's trying to help." Greg made a quick decision. "All personnel, follow the Earth creature's lead. Security team, provide covering fire." As the civilians began moving toward the hidden passage, Max stayed with them, helping guide them through the smoke. When one alien crew member stumbled, Max was there, letting them brace against his sturdy frame to regain their footing. The pirates, realizing their quarry was escaping, intensified their attack. One of them managed to get close to the retreating group, but Max placed himself between the threat and the civilians, his bark now deep and commanding. The pirate hesitated just long enough for Greg to blast them back. "I've never seen such tactical awareness in an untrained creature," Greg admitted as they helped the last civilians into the tunnel. "Our battle beasts only follow direct orders, but you're Max. That's the difference between forcing obedience and earning trust," Miller said, helping Greg seal the tunnel entrance behind them. "Max makes his own choices, and he chooses to protect." In the dim light of the maintenance tunnel, Max led the way forward, his nose and ears constantly working to detect any new threats. The battle beasts had to be left behind, still incapacitated by the sonic weapons, but Max remained focused and determined. "Commander," the science officer whispered as they moved through the tunnel, I'm starting to think we've been approaching beast integration entirely wrong. The Earth creature's independence makes it more effective, not less. The maintenance tunnel echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps as the mixed group of humans and aliens followed Max's lead. The golden retriever paused occasionally, nose twitching as he tested the air, then chose their path with confident purpose. The bridge is 2 levels up, Greg said, checking his armor's damage display. But the main lifts will be watched by the pirates. Max suddenly stopped and turned down a smaller side tunnel, looking back at the group expectantly. His tail wasn't wagging now. He remained focused on his self-appointed mission of keeping everyone safe. He's found something, Miller explained. In search and rescue operations on Earth, we learn to trust a dog's instincts. Commander Greg, who had spent his entire career trusting only in technology and force, made another decision that would have shocked his younger self. "Follow him," he ordered. The side tunnel led them to what looked like a maintenance shaft. Old-fashioned ladder rungs were built into the wall, leading upward through the ship's infrastructure. The emergency maintenance routes, Greg realized. They're not on the main ship schematics. The pirates wouldn't know about them. Max gave a soft woof of confirmation, then did something unexpected. He approached one of the younger alien crew members who was shaking with fear and gently pressed against their legs. The simple gesture of comfort seemed to help, and the crew member reached down to touch Max's fur. "Remarkable," the science officer whispered. "He identifies emotional distress and acts to alleviate it without any commands." "That's what makes dogs special," Miller said as they began their climb. "They understand how we feel. Sometimes they understand better than we do ourselves." The group climbed carefully through the ship's levels. Max waited at each landing, making sure no one was left behind. When they heard pirate patrols through the walls, he would give a silent warning. Ears perked, body tense, and everyone would freeze until the danger passed. "Our battle beasts never showed this level of situational awareness," Greg admitted during one such pause. "They only understand direct threats and direct orders." "Because you never gave them the chance to develop it," Miller explained quietly. "Dogs became what they are because we allowed them to keep their intelligence, their ability to think and feel. We worked with their natural instincts instead of trying to override them." A distant explosion rocked the ship, causing some debris to fall through the shaft. Before anyone could react, Max had positioned himself above the alien child from earlier, shielding them once again from falling material. The child's parent watched in amazement. "Twice now," they said. "Twice your beast has protected my child without being ordered to do so." "Max isn't our beast," Miller corrected gently. "He's our friend. Our family." They finally reached the bridge level, but the entrance to the shaft was sealed with a heavy maintenance panel. The group fell silent, knowing that making noise to open it might alert nearby pirates. Max solved this problem too. He began scratching lightly at a specific spot on the panel, and when Greg examined it, he found the manual release mechanism. "Your dog," Greg said, now showing colors of deep respect in his crest, "has done more than just help us survive. He's teaching us a better way." The science officer nodded enthusiastically. "Think of the applications. If we approached beast integration from this perspective of cooperation rather than domination." "First," Greg interrupted, his soldier's instincts kicking in, "we need to retake my ship. And I have a feeling our new friend here will be key to that effort." Max stood ready by the panel, alert but calm. In just a few hours, he had done more than change the aliens' view of Earth's animals. He had shown them a completely new way of thinking about strength, intelligence, and loyalty. Miller smiled, ready to help save the ship, Max. The dog's response was a determined look and a single confident tail wag. He hadn't been trained for space combat or dealing with pirates, but he knew his family, both human and alien now, needed his help. And that was all that mattered to him. The bridge of the Dominion's fist was eerily quiet when they finally managed to peek through a ventilation grate. 3 pirates stood guard while others worked on the ship's main controls, their faces hidden behind sleek masks. "They're trying to override our systems," Greg whispered, watching them work. "But why attack during a diplomatic meeting? Pirates usually go for cargo ships." Max, who had been sniffing the air intently, suddenly became very interested in something. His nose worked overtime, and he looked at Miller with the same expression he used during their training sessions. "He's got a scent," Miller whispered. "Something specific." The science officer scanned the air. "I'm detecting traces of thoracian metal polish. That's very expensive. Not something normal pirates would use." Thoracian polish. Greg's crest flickered with realization. That's standard issue for Dominion military gear. "These aren't pirates. They're deserters from our own fleet." Max confirmed this in his own way by pawing gently at Greg's armored leg, then pointing his nose toward the false pirates. The dog had somehow made the connection between the similar scents. "They knew our security protocols," Greg continued, pieces falling into place. "That's how they got past our sensors, and they knew exactly how to disable our battle beasts." One of the masked figures spoke, and their voice carried the distinct accent of Dominion military training. "The override is almost complete. Soon we'll have access to all of the Dominion's diplomatic codes." "Of course," the science officer breathed. "They're not after the ship. They're after the classified information from all our first contact missions." Max had begun to move purposefully along the ventilation shaft, his nose leading him somewhere specific. Miller followed close behind, trusting his companion's instincts. "What's he doing?" Greg asked, following them. "He's tracking something," Miller explained quietly. "Dogs can follow specific scents even when they're mixed with others. It's why we use them for search and rescue, finding lost people, and even detecting illegal substances." Max led them to another maintenance panel, this one looking down into what appeared to be the ship's primary computer core. Below them, more masked figures worked on connecting devices to the main systems. "They're downloading our secure databases," Greg growled. "If they get those codes." But Max wasn't done. He moved to another panel, then another, systematically showing them where all the infiltrators were positioned. Unlike the battle beasts, who could only confront threats directly, Max was helping them gather intelligence. "Your dog just mapped out their entire operation," Greg said in amazement. "Something our best scanning technology failed to do." Miller smiled proudly. "Dogs were helping humans hunt and track long before we had any technology. We learned to work together, each bringing our own strengths." The science officer's eyes lit up. "Commander, I have an idea. We know they're using sonic weapons against our battle beasts, but what if we could use that against them?" "What do you mean?" "The ship's internal speakers. We could reverse the frequency. Instead of disrupting command circuits, it would interfere with their communication devices. They wouldn't be able to coordinate." Greg's crest showed approval, but then dimmed. "We'd need to reach the auxiliary control room to do that. It's 3 sections away, and they're surely guarding it." Max's ears perked up at the conversation, and he gave a quiet woof before starting to move again through the maintenance system. "I think," Miller said with a knowing smile, "Max is telling us he knows a way there too." The dog led them through a maze of maintenance tunnels, carefully avoiding all guard positions he could smell. When they finally reached the auxiliary control room, they found it unguarded. The deserters hadn't expected anyone to reach it through the maintenance routes that didn't show up on ship schematics. "Amazing," Greg said, watching Max check the room for any threats before letting them enter. "He doesn't just follow orders. He understands the mission and adapts to help achieve it." "That's the difference between a servant and a partner," Miller replied, patting Max's head. "Now, let's take your ship back." The plan worked perfectly. When the science officer activated the modified sonic pulse through the ship's internal speakers, the deserters' communication systems went haywire. Their coordinated operation fell into chaos as they lost contact with each other. "Now," Greg commanded through the ship's backup communication system, "all loyal forces move in." But the deserters had one last surprise. Their leader, now revealed as a former Dominion captain named Vex, activated emergency bulkheads throughout the ship, trying to trap the security teams. They're going to seal themselves in the bridge with the main computer, the science officer warned. If they complete the download. Max barked once, then darted toward a small maintenance hatch that even the aliens had forgotten about. It was barely big enough for him to squeeze through. What's he doing? Greg asked, watching the dog disappear into the shaft. Miller smiled. He's thinking outside the box. Literally. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most obvious one. Inside the bridge, the deserters were rushing to complete their download when they heard something in the ventilation system. Before they could react, Max burst through a ceiling panel, landing right in the middle of their operation. He didn't attack. He didn't need to. His sudden appearance caused enough confusion and chaos to break up their work. In that moment of disruption, Greg's forces breached the bridge from multiple directions. The deserters, their communication systems still scrambled and their operation thrown into chaos by a single dog, were quickly overwhelmed. Surrender, Greg ordered, his armor fully powered as he stepped onto his bridge. Your plan has failed. Vex pulled off his mask, his crest showing colors of fury and disbelief. How? How did you counter our perfect plan? We knew all your protocols, all your defenses. That's exactly why you failed, Greg replied. You only understood our old ways, force, control, and predictable protocols. You weren't prepared for friendship. Max trotted over to Miller, tail wagging now that the danger was past. The alien child from earlier broke away from their parent and ran to hug the dog, who responded with gentle affection. Look at that, the science officer said, monitoring the interaction. The child's stress hormones decrease by 60% when in contact with the Earth creature. It's remarkable. As the security teams led the deserters away, Greg approached Miller and Max. The commander's crest was showing entirely new color patterns that the humans hadn't seen before. Ambassador Miller, he said formally, I owe both you and Max an apology. I saw only what I expected to see, a beast of war. I failed to understand that true strength can come from kindness and true loyalty from friendship. Miller nodded. It's a lesson humanity learned long ago. When we learn to work with dogs instead of trying to control them, we gain not just helpers, but family. The next few hours were busy with cleanup and security sweeps, but things changed noticeably aboard the Dominion's Fist. The crew, who had earlier feared Max, now smiled when he passed. The battle beasts, freed from their sonic restraints, were treated with more patience and less force. 1 week later, the diplomatic mission concluded with an unprecedented agreement. The Dominion would send officers to Earth to learn about animal handling and companionship. In return, human-animal behaviorists would help the Dominion develop a new approach to working with their own creatures. It's extraordinary, the science officer told Greg as they watched Max playing fetch with several alien children in the ship's recreation area. The battle beasts, now wearing normal collars instead of control devices, watched with increasing curiosity. We spent generations trying to create the perfect military companions, when all we needed to do was be, well, companions. Max brought the ball back and dropped it in front of one of the battle beasts. After a moment's hesitation, the creature picked up the ball in its mouth and, for the first time in its life, played. Greg's crest showed the color of hope again. Perhaps, he said, watching the scene with pride, the greatest power in the universe isn't force or technology at all. Perhaps it's simply being a good boy. And Max, hearing those familiar words, wagged his tail and barked in happy agreement.